Amba, I greet you in an unexpected language. That's the greeting by the Amazulu, the Zulus of South Africa. And I speak to you and greet you, Black Power Radio and Black Power Media, for the work that you're doing for liberation for us all. I've read about you recently by reading the work of Joy James. And congratulations. Keep on doing what you're doing. Do it bigger, do it blacker, do it stronger. With love, not fear. This is Mumia Abu Jamal. Amba.
What's happening, good people? We are live and direct. Happy Revolutionary New Year. Brought some friends along. This is Black Power Media. We used to say we was reloaded, but y'all know we reloaded already. You know what I mean? And if you don't know, now you know. I got a couple friends that I brought along to start the year off right. Anyway, I am Kalonji Changa. I'm broadcasting live from ATL. Good people, can y'all introduce yourselves and tell them where you're broadcasting from? Because some folks think that we all just in one living room hanging out on different sides of the couch. So tell them where you're from, who you be.
Peace, y'all. I'm Kiana, and I am broadcasting live from Decatur, where it's greater. Not too far from Atlanta, just a stone's throw down the road. But we are live and in full effect. Glad to be here with y'all today.
Doubt, no doubt. What else we got up there? They looking shy, Kiana. What's going on with these brothers?
Indeed. Never shy, with peace, uhuru, to the family. Habari Gani as well. Broadcasting live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Don't want to mix it up with Mississippi, So I'm in the PA. In the building.
No doubt.
Yeah, I'm going to try to practice my Swahili lessons. So it's Heri ya Mwankapia. Hopefully that's correct, right?
Ndio.
Heri ya Mwankapia.
Vizuri kaka.
Oh, asante sana.
Karibu.
Cats learned 2 words, now they going off.
This how we coming in the new year.
That's how we coming in.
We rating ourselves in the colonial language, man. Come on, bro.
Man,
let's go.
Yeah. Tell these people who you are, man. Knock it off.
Yeah, so Buna, I just said Happy New Year in Swahili. And talking to you from Paris.
You from where, brother?
I'm calling from Paris.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something else, man. I'm like, this brother now moved on us.
No, I stopped speaking Swahili a long time ago. You're still not listening.
Oh, okay.
Come on, y'all. Come on.
Yeah, there should be another brother joining us from France shortly. I guess.
I know it's been a while since we've been together, but
it's been at least.
Don't act like we're new to this. We true to this. We ain't new to this.
I didn't even know if it was really him or not. I know his other brother in France trying to get on right now. We see him in the background. He ain't got his camera on. I don't know what's going on with him and whatnot. He must be in the makeup room. What's going on, Fernando? Can you hear us?
Yo, peace. Can y'all hear me?
Peace. What's
Yeah,
going
we
on,
can
brother?
see you.
Yeah, I
You
don't know
can't
what's
see you,
going on.
man. You like a man in black today. What's going on, brother?
Hold on, I'm trying to get this going, brother.
It's all good, man. That's how they do in Paris. Fernando's also over there in France. You know what I'm saying? They get confused with the timing and everything. We ain't gonna throw no rocks just in case we want to go back to that colony. You know what I mean? Won't no problems. But while we getting ready and whatnot, we want to say thank you all for joining us. This is our first show of the year, and I want to give our brother Boona credit, who came in speaking Swahili. You know what I mean? Boona knows like 38 languages, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know where he did that, but I want to definitely, say salute to all the good people who have been supporting us throughout the years. We still here, we still rumbling. The beautiful thing about the brothers and the sisters that you see on the platform right now is that these are actual organizers. These aren't just talking heads who, hop up on the screen and you never see on the scene. So, I want to say that. We have a couple special guests coming on deck today. Our topic is Pan-Africanism and anti-resistance in 2026. We have joining us a little bit later on today, we have Dhoruba Bin Wahad, veteran Panther, political analyst, et cetera, former political prisoner. We also have Ajamu Baraka from Black Alliance for Peace, another veteran organizer. Look at that. Fernando now paid his bills, so now you can see who he is and whatnot. He in the building. Fernando, tell
man.
where you coming from, brother? He's over here.
I'm gonna blame it on Boona, man. I don't know what Boona was doing. I think he messed everything up over here this way, man.
I believe that, man.
Yeah, what's going on, family?
Good to see you, brother.
Good to see y'all, man. It's been a minute. Peace to everybody out there, man. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Yes.
Fernando, I thought that when you just showed up and your screen was all black, this was your intro, right? Because this is how we showing up in 2026. All black everything.
Black
everything. All right. I feel you.
Blacking out this year. Let's go.
No doubt. It's going to be a blackout. And that's a good thing. I think the thing is, too, when we say Black Power Media, they get it twisted, and some people think it's just cliche, and we just, talking because, folks walk around talking about Black Power, screaming Black Power in a powerless room. You know what I'm saying? That's not the type of party we got going on here. We'll tell you a little bit about the organizing a little later, but I want to, today is a very important day for folks that don't know in Revolution. So I wanted to kind of go over some of the things that happened on this date. We had, Haitian Revolution, the Haitians gained their independence on this day. You had the Cuban Revolution where the Cubans, overthrew Batista, and we also had Zapatista uprising, back in '94, I believe, and they were doing that thing out in Mexico. There's also a few other dates. We know that China became a republic today, and et cetera, Emancipation Proclamation. We'll be down about that, but these are just things for this particular date. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that folks know what time it is. Ikemba, if you don't mind, Dr. Ikemba, if you don't mind starting off giving folks a little bit of backstory on the Haitian Revolution, then we'll take it to Fernando to talk about Cuban Revolution, and hopefully our brother Boona, I don't know if he's going to tell y'all about
Dr. Boona.
Oh, Dr. Boona.
How you say it in Arabic, though? How you say it in Arabic?
Yeah, you say it in Arabic. Yeah. It be your own people. You try to find it on the joint. But anyway, Dr. Boona, no relation to Dr. Dre, he'll be talking about he'll give you all an insight on the Zapatista rebellion. And Kiana and I, we're gonna sit back. We're in the ATL and whatnot, rumbling. You know what I mean? They ain't really doing nothing with it. We're gonna keep it gangster. Dr. Kimber, if you don't mind starting it off before we go to Professor Fernando and Dr. Boona.
Indeed, man, and appreciate you uplifting the Emancipation Proclamation. I mean, that's Black history right there. We can talk about them contradictions for sure. But yeah, today being the the independence, the date that Haiti declares its independence from France. And we got our comrades here that's in France as well.
Don't try to play us. Don't try to play us, man. Come on.
No, what? No, that's in France. I'm saying, what? I don't even know. I don't know what I did wrong just now. But I was setting it up to say if there's anything y'all wanted to add, for sure, add on. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, they said tripping, bro. They said tripping.
Hey, I think Haiti, when we talk about Haiti too, the Haitian Revolution and them gaining their independence and them being the second, I want to say like the first, independent, state where you really have a country who is going to liberate all the people on the land. Because they talk about the American Revolution, and after the American Revolution, you still have close to 1 million people who are enslaved in this country. But that's for another conversation. But you have, the Haitian Revolution, which is going to inspire African people all throughout the Western Hemisphere to rise up against the system of colonialism and slavery. But it begins. I know we kind of start the story with, you know what? There's a quote too, and I almost forgot because I recently gave a presentation. There's a quote from Jacob Carruthers' Intellectual Warfare, and I think it's a good way to start it off. In the first chapter of that book, he quotes Duddy Bookman. He says, "Throw away the image of the God of the whites, who has so often brought down our tears, and listen to the liberty which speaks in our hearts." Right, and he goes on to state that that's something that should always be on the forefront of our mind as we struggle to liberate ourselves, right, from the system. And that quote that goes back to the ceremony that's going to take place in August, or August 14th, as they had with the boys' comment. I think it's called, I may be pronouncing it wrong, but correct me if I am. The ceremony, the Voodoo ceremony, that's really going to spark and inspire Haitians to rise up against their captors. But I want to go back to Jacques Ogué, because many times when we talk about the Haitian Revolution, we start in 1791 on August 14th or August 21st. Right, when we talk about this uprising, but Jacques Ogué is going to leave France, and actually he has to go into England. He has to escape from France, go into England, and get help by abolitionists to travel to America to purchase arms to go to Haiti. And this is prior to the start of the Haitian Revolution, where he's going to be organizing quote unquote free blacks or free people of color in Haiti to rise up and revolt against the system, against the slave system in Haiti. This is in 1790 going into 1791, and I think that's an important part of this story, that the Haitian people were already resisting the slave system prior to August 14th. So just to give that context, I think is important as well. Understanding there's a lot of history here, so I don't really know where to go, but I want to say in that particular year before you have this revolt, you have a slave system where there's a social and economic stratification or political stratification in Haiti. You're going to see somewhere close to 500,000 African people who are enslaved under this system, with somewhere around 30 to 40,000 whites who are controlling this African population. You have a free black population that is this during this time where you have somewhere around 30,000 quote unquote free blacks. I say quote unquote because they're still being discriminated against, treated as second class citizens. So I think like when you look at what's happening in Haiti right now, just to talk about what's going to spark this revolution, is that there's going to be this tension or dissension between those free blacks and the white population, where there's a divide between even the white population, where you have a wealthy class and a poor class of whites. I say all of this though to say like this is something that we can learn from today. You know, when we're talking about our struggle today, let's look at these contradictions that exist during that time and what's going to sort of open the door for the enslaved population to be able to rise up and revolt against the slaveholders. So this dissension that exists between the white population, the wealthy white population, and the poor population, as well as the quote unquote free population of blacks, is going to cause the black population, the slaveholders, to arm their slaves to be able to defend and protect the plantation, to be able to defend and protect the slaveholders, right, from a potential uprising or revolt, civil war. This gives the opportunity for the black population, who are now armed to defend the slaveholders, to turn those guns against the slaveholders and to overturn the system of slavery in Haiti. This is going to be a conflict that's going to go on for about a decade. Some of the key figures, we know Toussaint Louverture, Duddy Bookman, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who's going to finish the revolution off in Haiti and be the one that declared Haiti's independence in 1804. Again, I know I'm kind of like all over the place because it's a lot of history, so I'm just trying to touch on some important points. But I want to say like Haiti's revolution is going to inspire key figures here in the United States, where me, Kiana, and Kalanji is based, where the Haitian Revolution inspires figures like Demarc Vesey in South Carolina, who attempts to organize a revolt against the slave system of South Carolina. David Walker, who writes The Appeal, right, who is going to call for an uprising against the slave system throughout the South. David Walker's Appeal, and finally another among others, I think Henry Highland Garnett, who in 1843 goes in front of the Colored Convention and declares that the enslaved population or attempts to motivate the enslaved population in the South to rise up against the slave masters. So, you know, all of this is going on. The Haitian Revolution, I think, still inspires Africans all over the world to revolt against the continuous system of colonialism, to liberate ourselves. I think it's a great symbol. And I don't know if anybody else want to add anything on, or if there's any questions, you know, that kind of can give me some focus as well. But, you know, if anybody had any thoughts, they can add on.
I mean, I think you make a great point when you talk about the inspiration, because that's our history. You know, it's one of Pan-Africanism, where different revolts inspired, you know what I'm saying, revolts from different places throughout, you know, South America and the Caribbean, throughout the continent, both continents, they inspired each other, you know what I mean, with resistance, with guerrillas and, you know, all of that. So I think that's a great point to highlight. That could make me, if there's anything else on that, or if you want me to jump to Cuba right away.
Yeah, I want to add something. The Haitian Revolution. If you allow Dr. Boone to speak, right? No, I think Campbell kind of laid it out, but just wanted to add that the Haitian Revolution was the epitome, the triumph of a succession of revolts that African people of African descent, have been carrying out since the first day. They put a foot on the shores of the Americas, because before the Haitian Revolution, you had other uprisings, including in South America, as Fernando mentioned, you had the Quilombos, which were villages, and sometimes it was even larger than villages. Could cover an entire state. Where in South America, particularly in Brazil, you had slaves who had escaped from slavery, established their own government, established their own territory, were autonomous from the whites. So the longest one was the Quilombos dos Palmares in Brazil. It lasted for around almost a century. By the way, it was led by Zumbi. But when I visited Mexico, I was also taught the history of another slave revolt, another successful slave revolt that resulted in the establishment of another territory that was autonomously managed by the slaves. So if you type on Google, you can see, for example, there's a city in the state of Veracruz in Mexico that is called Yanga.
Yanga,
right? Yeah, Yanga was a slave who was deported from today's Gabon, I think. At least it was Central Africa. And he was able to, with other slaves, to lead a very successful, revolt against the Spanish slave owners back then. I guess Yanga was in the 16th century. So you have Yanga in the 16th century, Zumbi dos Palmares in the 17th, and then you have the Haitian Revolution in the 19th century. And before that, you also had other revolts. I mean, throughout the Caribbean and South America, Latin America. What we call today Latin America. So what it tells us is that African people, and this is something that Cabral has said in one of his most famous speeches, resistance to domination is the most distinctive feature of the history of African peoples in the continent and the diaspora, right? And when we say that, we don't say that just to, feel good about what our ancestors have done, right? Because usually, what makes me sometimes very frustrated is that sometimes you go to these celebrations, people talk about the glory of our ancestors, but they don't seem to they don't seem to learn any lessons, right, of those revolts, whether successful or not, because some of the revolts were defeated, right? One of the revolts that we could have mentioned also is Nat Turner, right? I think it was in 1830, right? Was also inspired by the Haitian Revolution. So something very important. Sorry, I forgot this. And it's very important. Is that when the uprising of the enslaved Africans in Haiti happened, they faced the most powerful army back then. Right, it was the army of Napoleon. He deployed, I think, 40,000 soldiers armed to the teeth. Right, the most powerful army back then, and they were defeated by Jean-Jacques Dessalines and his comrades. So what it shows is that whenever African people were able to come together, because when we talk about Haiti, we talk about not only people who were born in Haiti as, descendants of slaves, but we also talk about Africans who were brought from Africa and who participated in the Haitian Revolution. So I have a friend from Sudan, for example. He's doing a research right now on the roots of Pan-Africanism in Sudan, and he told me the history of I don't know if I got his name correctly, but I think it's Francis Darfour, so a slave from current state of Darfur in Sudan, who came to Haiti as a slave and who participated in the revolution as well. So it was an anti-colonial, first really anti-colonial revolution in the 19th century, because the American Revolution, all those revolutions in that continent, they were all counter-revolutions that were aimed at reestablishing slavery, a system that the Haitian revolutionaries defeated. So it was anti-colonial revolution, Pan-African revolution, but it also shows the extent to which the enemies of African peoples are willing to make sure that whatever we implement in order to free ourselves, they will make every endeavor to make sure that it will be defeated, right? So I think this is also one of the very important lessons that we have to learn. Whenever Black people make progress all over the world, whether in Africa or in the diaspora, you always have white supremacists who will make every endeavor in order to destroy whatever rights we have acquired. So we should be permanently alert to the fact that whatever rights, whatever conquest we're going to make, we have enemies who will make every endeavor to make sure that we go back to the stages that we found, that our ancestors found themselves in, which was total submission and enslavement. Right. Sorry, I didn't expect to be that long, but
no, we expect you to. You try to redeem yourself because you know what I'm saying. The brother try to throw you on the bus with France and everything. So you know, you let him know that.
No, I could have talked about the Haitian Revolution for hours.
I already know, but I want to.
Hey, Kalanji.
Yep.
Yeah, just quickly, I want to make just a quick point to appreciate Buna laying that all down. At the time, Haiti was the wealthiest Caribbean colony. At the time, like 40%, 60% of the coffee, sugar that was being exported in the world was coming out of Haiti. It was considered the pearl of the Antilles, right? Yes. That's what they considered Haiti. And I say that to say, when we look at Haiti today, and we can see like that's underdevelopment. That is intentionally done to by the West, by the European, to keep Haiti poor. Because how you have a country that is one of the wealthiest places in the world all of a sudden can't generate wealth. So I just wanted to make that, quick.
No, definitely. I appreciate you and Buna with Buna's unabridged version of revolution. But definitely these revolts. I want to also salute the St. John uprising, the rebellion out there in 1733, and also when we talk about, because you talk about rebellions and revolts from all over the world, and particularly the diaspora, the Caribbean, the continent, etc. We did resist. Also want to point out St. Croix, 1848, and also 1878 with the fire burn and with Queen Mary. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of resistance, and we're definitely pleased and grateful to be able to talk about this on Black Power Media, because not often do you get what we're going to be bringing you here today. I definitely want to tap into Cuba and to the Zapatista rebellion as well. I know we have our first guest behind the scenes. When he turned his camera on, we'll be bringing him on. We'll have Kiana bring him on. But what I'll do for now, if Fernando can give us a brief on the Cuban Revolution real quick, then we'll bring Dhoruba Bin Wahad on next, and we'll take it from there. You're checking out Black Power Media. This is Black Power Media Reloaded. Hit that like button, subscribe, do all the things they do in YouTube land, and let people know that we're on. This is a New Year revolution. Fernando, kick it.
Yes, sir. Hoodoo. So the Cuban Revolution, again, inspired by the Haitian Revolution, and anything that comes after the Haitian Revolution, well, first of all, as Pan-Africanists, a lot of us call that the beginning of Pan-Africanism, even though we just spoke about, the Palenques and the Quilombos and the Maroons and all that, but the Haitian Revolution being like first Black nation is kind of like the beginning of Pan-Africanism. But the Cuban Revolution, we talking 1959, but I can't get to that without briefly speaking about the long history of revolution that is of Cuba. You know what I'm saying? I want to first mention, our great ancestor Carlota Lucumí. She was an African woman, Lucumí, right, on the island of Cuba, and she did a very important revolt, which was in 1843 of the Triunvirato. The Triunvirato was a big time sugar mill, and they organized in order to turn it around, to burn it, and this is big time. This is history that a lot of times is not taught, but it was a big time rebellion. She was in a place called Matanzas, which is a very historically Black known city in Cuba, Matanzas. And then later on, if we know history a little bit, later on in 1975, there was the Operation Carlota, which they named the Operation Carlota after Carlota Lucumi, and it was, you know, when Cuba helped defend Angola, you know, from South Africa apartheid and the United States. So there's that. There's the Carlota Rebellion in 1843. Then I want to mention, obviously, the Cuban Wars of Independence. You know, from Spain, we were colonized by Spain, and this was long. It's a period of 30 years. We talking 1868 to 1898. You know, of guerrillas. We at the beginning they used guerrilla hit and run tactics, you know, because obviously the Spanish army was much larger and they were better equipped. So it was hit and run tactics for many years. And then victory comes in 98, right? In 1898. So from 1895 to 1898, one of the main generals was Antonio Maceo, which is a brother that was known as the Titan of the Bronze, the Titan of Bronze. Yeah, the Bronze Titan, very important. And this was, guerrilla warfare across the entire island. And so, in Cuba, slavery was abolished in 1886, which is very late. One of the latest places, you know, only next to Brazil, I believe. Brazil was abolished a couple years after that. So in 1898, Spain lost total control of Cuba, right? In 1898. But, you know, racism was still very well alive. You know, as we know, it wasn't Spain controlling anymore, but it was basically white Cubans. So in 1908, this is important, very important in Cuban history, especially Afro-Cuban history. In 1908, the Independent Party of Color was founded. All right, so this was an organization of Afro-Cubans. It became a political party, but it was founded by Evaristo Estenos and Pedro Ibonet, and they were old members of the army that fought against the Spanish, right? So they were called Mambis. Mambis were the brothers and sisters that fought against the Spanish, which was an army that was 90% African, okay? 80 to 90% Afro-Cubans was the ones that were on the battlefield against the Spanish. But still, when we won, the white Cubans ended up ruling and running this. So this is why in 1908, the Independent Party of Color was founded. And they gained a lot of popularity because obviously, you know, the island was mainly Afro-Cubans. But by 1912, a lot happened. I'm not going to go over the whole history, but by 1912, they were massacred because it was an uprising of thousands of Afro-Cubans because they were in the run to gain political power. And the government that was in place didn't allow that. So the government that was in place, which was the president at the time, was Jose Miguel Gomez, and they were obviously in conjunction with the United States government at the time. So they massacred the Independent Party of Color along with thousands of Afro-Cubans. It was about, we're talking like close to 10,000 Cubans were massacred in 1912. And unfortunately, a piece of history is that still to this day, there's a statue of Jose Miguel Gomez, was the president at the time, and the statue is still in Havana today. So that's kind of crazy. But to get to after that, so that was 1912, the massacre of the Independent Party of Color. So we go through a few years. Like I said, the United States is fully collaborating with the white Cuban government. And 1959, that's the victory of the Cuban Revolution with Fidel Castro at the head. The dictator Batista was there. He was running things over there with the United States. Some of the main leaders are, as you know, Fidel Castro, his brother Raul Castro. He was the key commander. Che Guevara, obviously, greatly known figure.
Camilo Cienfuegos.
Camilo Cienfuegos, yeah, you know about that. Camilo Cienfuegos, he was very much loved by the people. Che Guevara was the guerrilla leader, strategist. Obviously, like I said, Batista, he was he was a dictator. He was known for corruption, repression. You know, he had, like I said, close ties with the United States, the mafia, all of that. And so that was that. And I'll give just a few little bits of history as to how the revolution succeeded. In 1953 was the Moncada attacks. The Moncada attacks, they actually failed. Fidel Castro led an unsuccessful attack on the military barracks, imprisoned, then exiled. And then 1956 was the return from exile. Castro and 81 revolutionaries landing Cuba on the yacht, on the Granma, which was the yacht. Then 1956 to 1958 was the guerrilla war. So small rebel forces operate from the Sierra Maestra Mountains. Sierra Maestra Mountains are, obviously, it's towards the middle of the island, and that's where a lot of the battles went down. And then, you know, obviously, Batista starts to lose support from the complete support from the people, and the revolution succeeds. 1958 rebel offensives. Che Guevara and Camilo Cienfuegos captured the key cities, all the key cities. And Batista, like I said, loses complete military and political support. In 1959, the revolutionaries enter Havana. So they were throughout all the cities, but they entered Havana last in 1959, which is the capital, Havana. And yeah, Castro becomes head of the new government just soon after that. So that's a quick rundown. But like I said, I think it's important to highlight a little bit of the things that happened before that as well, you know, because it's a long history of revolution.
No doubt. I appreciate both you brothers sharing on Haiti and also Cuba. And for folks who are tuning in late, we were talking about Haiti and Cuba, and also we'll be talking about later on in the show, we'll be talking about Mexico as far as the Zapatistas, because of the fact that today, for folks that don't know, this is a day of resistance, it's a day of revolution, and a few different situations took place. So it's not just New Year on the quote unquote Gregorian calendar. You know what I'm saying? We're not just, I know some folks was busting in the air yesterday and the fireworks and all that type of stuff, using up all their goddamn bullets, you know what I'm saying, to shoot up in the air, killing flies and whatever the hell they're shooting that up in the air, oxygen, you know what I mean? But you might want to save those with this upcoming regime. We have our first guest coming on deck. We have two guests today. I want my sister, the Reverend Dr. Kiana Jones Moore, who's been quiet on the set, you know what I mean, to introduce our first guest. What's happening?
Hey, we all get to be doctors today. I'm loving it. You know, I get to be Reverend Doctor. This Reverend is amazing. As Reverend Doctor, I would love to introduce to those of you who are listening to us for the first time, those of you who are not listening to us for the first time and are regulars here at Black Power Media Reloaded. It is my distinct honor to be able to introduce to you someone who is very near and dear to my heart. He is a former field secretary for the original Black Panther Party, one of the founding members of the Black Liberation Army, 19-year political prisoner, author of Revolution in These Times, currently and most recently an official observer of the 5th Pan-African Congress in Accra, Ghana, which took place in November of 2025. He is the epitome of what a revolutionary is to me, and I absolutely love Dhoruba Bin Wahad. Dhoruba, thank you so much for joining us today.
What's happening, D? Your mic is muted.
Peace. Welcome, Kara.
Welcome, Dhoruba.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Sister Love, Kenyana.
Hey!
And greetings to all the comrades there. I was listening in. I just got back from the coast. And of course, Kalanji told me at the last minute while I was in the car. But it's all. But anyway, yeah. And Bona, hey, how you doing? You know, you know, Bona and Kwesi Pratt, and hey man, good to see you. Will. How you doing?
Good to see you too. I'm good, and you? It's been a while.
Yeah, man. I've been monitoring your commentaries on the Congo and what recently happened in Eastern Congo in that bogus peace agreement. You know, yeah, man. And to the comrades there, you know, I just want to say Happy New Year. I hope we could move forward and put behind some of these enemies, both outside the barricades and behind the barricades. And I just want to say, I think I sent around a memo. I think Kalanji got it, where I had indicated that I think this year is going to be a very important year because the implosion of the global order is speeding up. The imperialists and the white supremacists, Christian ethno-nationalists are almost hysterical over the unfolding of events around the world. So we can expect serious war in the next few months, if not before the end of this month. And it's going to pull a lot of us into certain conflicts. And so I think that it's very important that we amongst ourselves, comrades and fraternal organizations, we really need to have an internetwork discussion, and so that we can draw a strategic vision and a tactical way forward, because we're going to be beset by all types of reactionaries. I mean, forget Nicki Minaj. I mean, she's like, you know, I mean, we're talking about serious reactionaries. And I think I could talk to Kalanji, at least here in America, for the comrades who are not here. I think one of our major focus should be the so-called Black elected officials. This is a midterm year. A lot of these knuckleheads are up for re-election. And I think we should emphasize, as Pan-Africans, as revolutionaries, as anti-imperialists, we have to emphasize the connection between the imperial implosion of white supremacy and its reaction to the domestic scene. When we see ICE agents now, they have $100 million campaign to recruit. In New York City, almost 3,000 cops have resigned because of the Socialist Democratic elected mayor, and they have joined ICE. Many of them have joined ICE. And so ICE is becoming a bulwark, much like the fascist brown shirts were at the rise of Hitler in 1934, 1935. They are outside the purview of regular these crackers in blue costumes, you know. So we are going to be faced with a state, and I think that's one of the things Kalanji wanted to talk about, the relationship between fascism and Pan-African and the Pan-African consolidation. I know, Buna, there's a lot going on here, man. I'm really kind of excited about the young people coming together now to challenge the old political elite and comprador classes, and that's the major question when we talk about Pan-Africanism. I don't want to segue away, but that's the major question before us now, as we move towards creating a united continent. The idea and the concept of Pan-African unity challenges the African comprador class, the African ruling elite, to commit class suicide. It's going to be very difficult for them to commit class suicide, but we cannot have Pan-African unity if we have 54 different national elites allying themselves with the former colonizers and other reactionary forces, backing undercover overthrows of progressive movements. So I think that class struggle now in Africa is going to be at the forefront of consolidating African a Pan-African paradigm in the 21st century. So, and we see now in America that that's far advanced. The Black Comprador class, our elected officials, the Congressional Black Caucus, they have been silent for the last 2 years on the genocide in Gaza. They are silent on the most devastating humanitarian crisis of the 21st century in Sudan. They're silent about what's happening in Eastern Africa and Kenya. They're silent about the pressure being put on South Africa because of its advocacy at the International Criminal Court. And this is horrifying to me, that we could have so many Black elected officials, more than we've ever had in our entire history, and no political power, no political voice, no dissident against imperialism and white supremacy. And we see recently that the Zionists have put hundreds of millions of dollars into their new campaign to sway the West in supporting their genocide, in legalizing their genocide. We've seen the U.S. Sponsored a so-called peace process deal that went into the Security Council and was passed just like that, and it calls for the disarming of Hamas. It calls for the ceasing of resistance to the European settled state of Israel. And so, in some places we are on the back foot, and the Pompadour classes especially. And I want to drop this in here when we talk about fascism, and I hope Ajamu will bring this up too when we talk about it in Latin America. North Africa, the Arab African countries are not disposed towards Pan-Africanism. They will be the major obstacle towards Pan-Africanism in the next decade, will be the Arab-speaking countries, especially like Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Egypt, Tunisia, and most of those, Morocco, who's currently still, supplying supplies and transferring equipment to Israel on the down low. We know the UAE is the major backer, and Abona knows this more than I do, are the major backers in the Sudan and against the Sudanese people. They want to balkanize Sudan. They do not want a unified Sudan, a balkanized Sudan system, because many of the mineral resources and the oil is in the south, and the refineries and the distribution networks are in the north. So the Sudan struggle, of course, is intrinsically linked to what's going on in Western Asia with Israel and Palestine and the Yemen. There's a conflict between the UAE and Egypt over backing conflicting forces in the Yemen. And as a Muslim, I can say that the Yemen are the only Muslims on the planet who are adhering to the directions of Allah to resist Tagut, to resist this ideology of white supremacy. And they're resisting it actively, while everybody else is collaborating and claiming to be working towards a negotiated peace. So I just wanted to say that because, first of all, I want to say to all of the comrades who, wherever they are, your report backs are necessary, and I think that we have to, Kalanji, we have to put these report backs, this information, this intel that we're getting for comrades like Cardenas and Bona and other comrades in France. We have to put this into a common database. I think we need a common database. And I think this common database should be only accessed by those organizations that join the coalition, the anti-imperialist coalitions, on basic principles. We could create a password for it. We could create a website for it. But we need a unified database. There's struggles all over the country. There's struggles going on all over the world. And we have comrades who are reporting back on these struggles. They're giving us concrete information about what's going on, who to support, who is in opposition. And this information should be available to all of us, because we are in a situation where a tactical initiative is very important right now. It's very important. We see what's happening in with Somaliland, and how the Zionists and Israeli Mossad are all over this. Their footprints is all over this. They've been trying to bum rush the AU, the African Union, for God knows how long. They almost got in. What was it, 2 years ago, Bono? They almost got in under a fake advocacy, and it was thrown back out. But they're right here. They're right here in Ghana. They're right here in ECOWAS. ECOWAS is crumbling. But the good thing about this is that the enemies of Pan-Africanism are coming to the front. They're all being called out now. So we know who the enemies are. We see that Nigeria, after the U.S. attack in northern Nigeria came out and said, well, we was down with it. We cooperated and all of this. Then they put a proviso underneath and started mumbling some incoherent shit about sovereignty. So we need to understand that was just a shot over the bow, that Nigerian attack, because the U.S. was ran out of Niger. That was their major zone. That was their major base in Western Africa, and they were ran out of Niger, and they were asked to leave Ghana, and that's still in the process. They're putting Ghana on the hit list now as we speak, because Ghana is advocating the Sixth Region reparations or solidarity effort. As Bona knows, he's often been working with the socialist movement of Ghana, so he knows how effectively the young people can be mobilized and how obstinate the class opposition is to these young folks in these countries. And I think Nigerians and all of these other EU nations, Ivory Coast, they're very afraid right now. Everybody's looking over their shoulders. All of these old despots are looking at these young soldiers who are idolizing Ibrahim Traore and Goita, and so they're all feeling shaky. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Nigerians allowed the Americans to do this, because what it says is that the Americans don't have to be in Africa in order to affect the regional power paradigms on the continent. They're right over the horizon now as I speak. I was on the coast of the Gulf of Guinea all night, the last 2 days, and right over the horizon is a U.S. task force. They were the ones that launched the missile attacks and stuff into northern Nigeria. So we could expect to see some of this going on again. We know about Nigerian intervening in Benin in order to restore the despot that was there, and nullify any type of coup in the tradition of Burkina Faso. Now that the AES has now banned American passports, I think it started with Mali, and now they're banning. I got the worst passport on the planet. I got a passport of the empire. That went from number 2 to number 13. So now, Mali. And this is right, man. Mali said if you want to come into Burkina Faso on a Mali passport, you got to put up $10,000, something like that. You understand? Security deposit to make sure your ass leave on time. So I'm saying, man, this was long overdue. Overdue, but unfortunately. So I just wanted to say that when we talk about our collectives, where we are at, I think we all should try to design a radical Pan-African and revolutionary database. We know the enemy is going to tap into it, but we don't care nothing about that, because we're straight up in who we oppose and what we stand for, and so we are sophisticated enough to know that if they come at us on a database, we got something for their ass. This is an opportunity for us, not a setback. So I just want to throw that out there and see if comrades would agree on that, and maybe Kalanji and a couple of other Black media networks could serve as the backbone for the creation of this.
No doubt. We definitely talk about that behind the scenes. It's always a powerful idea. The only pushback I have is that you're giving Boona too much credit. And so you give Boona so much credit. You know what I'm saying? No telling what can happen. We go
Man,
though. So
I wanted Bona to respond to Nicki Minaj talking about Christians. Because see, Bona take it to Congo. You take it to Christians in the Congo. You take it, you take it to a few places. And so, yeah, man, you can see how desperate they are if they got a bogus. I mean, everything on Girlfriend is bogus. Everything is plastic. And if you see the before and after of Nicki Minaj, you will see why she's as crazy as she did. I think some of that glucose, whatever they're shooting in her, it went to her brain, or something, man.
Well, that's about on point, Dhoruba. I mean, Christianity is inherently demonic. And when you think about a person like Nicki Minaj and what it is that she represents, what she has to offer, this is a person who is married and defends a pedophile. I mean, the sexual abuse.
Yeah, what's her name? Girlfriend said that. What's her name? Joy Reid?
Yes.
Joy Reid. Joy Reid said she must be cool with Trump because she's down with Epstein, and so they both like Peter.
She wants a pardon for her husband, I'm sure. I mean, she married this person. What's his name? Something Petty, whatever his name is. She married this person who was convicted of sexual assault. And I do believe that it involves a minor. But at any rate, when you start to go back and you look at these people, everybody who's been on Epstein Island and whatever, she ain't dumb. She knows that Trump is the person to cozy up to because this is something that he thinks is okay. It's something that she obviously thinks is okay.
Well, he's not going to deport her. Like he said he was,
absolutely won't.
But I just want to put a lotto in with comrades because I don't think Trump is going to make it to May. But he's on a special medical diet. They got some experimental drugs that haven't been approved yet by the FDA, but they're doing anything desperately to keep this piece of dog shit alive. So, but Allah, men plan and plot, but Allah is the best of planners. And homeboy will go out, exit stage right, jump style. And so we be dancing in the street when that happens, but we can't get too confident because look at his backup crew.
Oh yeah, he's definitely got the minions out there. When I look at
backup crew, Christy Nolan.
The fact that he has used the so-called persecution of Christians in Nigeria as a basis for bombing Nigeria. What we see already is this is his attempt at the extension of AFRICOM. AFRICOM, I can guarantee you that the next thing we're going to hear is, this is why we need a military base in Nigeria. This is why we need to make sure that we establish our presence and that, we have influence in this region because white Christian nationalism, which is built on Zionism, is what is being promoted here. We saw this past week, Somaliland having to respond to comments from Israel at the United Nations. And as a person who has gone to the United Nations, who has advocated for human rights, who has
Somalia, you mean Somalia, right?
Yes, I'm sorry, Somalia. Yes, who's called out the hypocrisy of American imperialism at the United Nations. The first thing that I'm confused about is how the United States still has a post on the Security Council when they pulled out from the Human Rights Council and owes the United Nations over $1.5 billion. But somehow we still get a vote. We still get a voice. The United States is still allowed to trot out this so-called peace agreement in Congo, the so-called ceasefire in Gaza, and Israel is saying that it cannot adhere to this ceasefire unless Hamas gives up all of its weaponry. That you want us to lie down and to not resist, as Dhoruba already alluded to, everything that we see here is smoke and mirrors. It's all a game, and nobody who is actually serious about revolution or liberation believes anything that's coming from this administration. To Dhoruba's point about a database, there are young comrades who are working on mesh networks that are digitally secure. There are young comrades who are already talking about how it is that we digitize information and share it without being under the watchful eye of Big Brother. So I definitely think that that's a conversation that needs to continue. What I'm very interested in this moment is that here in the so-called United States, people are going gaga over the Buddhist monks who are on their walk for peace. They are walking from Fort Worth, Texas, all the way to Washington, D.C. And what I see right now is something that is meant to be a meditative process for the edification of those who are participating, and to raise awareness also just for the need for peace globally. I'm seeing it being politicized in a way that I shouldn't have been naive to think that it wouldn't be politicized. But what I'm seeing is all of these Black elected officials coming out, filming the walk. They're planning, talks at different stops. Raphael Warnock was down the street from my house 2 days ago, where the Buddhist monks came through. And I have to tell y'all that it was, in my opinion, it was shameful just to see people who come out to say, oh, I want to see these monks. They're going to go and they're going to record the monks walking. They're not even going to maintain silence as the monks have requested. They're cheering and doing all types of other stuff, taking selfies, talking about they're a part of history. But the next day they're going to go back into their homes and they're not going to do anything. And the world is on fire around us. And when we see things like this, it's incensing, but at the same time, I feel you, Dhoruba, when you say that. I know it looks crazy, but we have so much hope in this time because people are waking up more and more and they're tired of the performance and people are ready to seriously make a move. So I am also standing hopefully that people will continue to wake up and continue to see that Black faces in high places have still not saved us. They never have and they never will. And that it's up to us to press for the things that we want. And the beginning of doing that is understanding exactly how it is that world events are affecting us, that there is no different from an African on Turtle Island and an African in Sudan, so that we can get on the same page and begin to move truly toward liberation.
As you respond to that, Dhoruba, I'm gonna ask Buna to also bring on our next guest. Buna, if you don't mind introducing our next guest, while and then Dhoruba can respond to what Kiana just laid out.
Yeah, I was about to say that our next guest doesn't need an introduction, but since you did, so Ajamu Baraka, he's one of our elders, activist, organizer. He's one of the founders of the Black Alliance for Peace, obviously, that most people who are probably watching this program already know of, but also the North South Project, Center for Human Rights, that was launched recently. He's been on this platform several occasions. In fact, he was earlier, I was about to say earlier this year, but we're already in 2026. But we are actually fortunate to meet him in person in June, when we invited him here to Paris to participate in an anti-imperialist conference. So that was the opportunity that we had to, meet him for the first time for some of us physically, and also talk about some of the project that he'll be probably talking about during this show. So I say the name already, right? Ajamu Baraka.
What's happening, brother?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this conversation. And I really want to shout out to all of you all for the outstanding work that you all continue to engage in and bring in alternative information, alternative knowledge to the masses of our people and indeed the world. And of course, special acknowledgement of all of our leaders, all of us our great leader, brother Dhoruba. It's always an honor to be on the same platform with this brother. So thank you.
No doubt, no doubt. Definitely happy to have you on. And it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, as Boona's favorite TV host, Mr. Rogers, would say. It's good to start off the new year with some coherency, because this is a very incoherent world. Dhoruba, do you want to respond to what good Reverend Dr. Kiana had to say, and then we'll hop into Ajamu with
I'm going to be quick so Ajamu could jump in, because I know he has a lot of fill-ins. I really wanted to segue to Bona and ask them to give a little more detail about that so-called Trump adopted peace agreement with Tshisekedi and Eastern Congo. The Orange Man is claiming that as one of his peace initiatives that's supposed to give him a Nobel Peace Prize. That's one of the things I wanted to ask him. But to address Sister Kiana statement, I think that if we're going to try to delineate fascism within the context of the current anti-hegemonic struggles that are going on, in which Pan-Africanism is a major one. And this is one of the things why I wanted to jump with a comment, because Latin America is getting lit up right now. South America is getting lit up right now, with the U.S. Are slaughtering fishermen, claiming that they're drug dealers. I heard that, I don't know if it's verified, that they launched a strike in northern Venezuela, claiming to be targeting a cocaine manufacturing plant or something of that nature. I don't know how legitimate that is, but I do know that these are very important times for us. So like Kalanji pointed out, these are the best of times and these are the worst of times. These are the best of times for us as activists, as capitalist, anti-white supremacist, and Christian ethno-nationalism, jingoistic nationalism that seems to permeate Western Europe right now. It seems to be all over the place in Western Europe. And so these are very crucial times. And I think that we really have to be a little more, I don't want to say a little more open in our analysis to be able to dissect. Let me turn this over to Ajamu. This is my firstborn son, and I haven't talked to him since 1922. So let me turn this over. Please, I beg you. Could you just?
No doubt, man. Tell you firstborn, we said peace, brother. Okay. I appreciate that, man. Yep. We're gonna let him take that call. Ajamu, you can kind of hop on and give us your take on the state of the union.
Well, if I'll follow up on where the brother was going with that question about East Africa, and then connect that to another so-called peace process that the U.S. is supposed to be spearheading, which is the so-called peace process in Gaza. Clearly, these things are not serious. These are photo ops, and in particular, the situation with Gaza was no more than an effort to take the Gaza story off the front pages by pretending that there was some kind of breakthrough and there was really the real possibility of peace, even though in the so-called peace process, there was nothing there that was addressing the crux of the issue, which is the denial of Palestinian national statehood, the denial of Palestinian national rights. So these are all phony kinds of moves that are being made to give a veneer of respectability to a certain extent to the ongoing aggressive and imperialist policies of the United States of America. And we've got to understand that that we are in fact at war, and that this war is being operationalized on different fronts. And when we look at what is unfolding in the boundaries of the U.S., we can see the particular kind of manifestation of that war, especially right now as they are targeting the so-called illegals and undocumented. With now the focus on Somalians, which is interesting and dangerous, because I make the argument that that's the bridge from a targeting of undocumented to a targeting of African people who are also supposed to be U.S. citizens, because the vast majority of Somalians are in fact U.S. citizens. So if they are able to get away with conditioning the public to allow them to brutalize and deny the fundamental human rights of Somalians, then that on the heels of the normalization of a racist genocide in Gaza, that does not bode well for us Africans, because that means that basically as they intensify their focus on us, there are very few forces in the world that can get to us that we can depend on to help support us. And it's a dangerous, dangerous situation for us in the U.S. and dangerous for African people and colonized people globally, because these people are serious. They're serious by trying to find a way to maintain hegemony, U.S. hegemony, U.S. and Western European hegemony. And they seem to be on the track that basically either they're going to maintain U.S. And Western hegemony, or they're going to blow up the world. Mm. So as the brother said, this is a very dangerous moment. I would argue probably the most dangerous moment since 1492.
That's serious. Serious. I see. We definitely appreciate your words. Dhoruba, I see you. You back in the building. You want to comment on that, or is any questions from Buna or Fernando that you would like to address?
Yeah, I just want to comment very quickly.
I agree. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, because you asked a question about the Congo and the so-called peace plan. So I just wanted to comment very quickly. You know what's really tragic? I was about to say funny, but it's not really funny. Like Trump, he didn't even know the names of the presidents, right? So just to show us, how he doesn't care at all about African peoples, right? He couldn't even say Tshisekedi. I don't know if you guys saw the video when he was trying to pronounce the name of the president of Congo as they were officializing, the so-called peace treaty, which many Congolese described as a capitulation, definitely, because it's giving everything back to Rwanda. And Trump, he provided us with a perfect summary of what the so-called peace plan is about. He said, and I'm just quoting Trump, he said, the Rwandans and the Congolese, they went to him and told him, please take our minerals. Trump said, okay, I'll take them. You sign here. That's how we summarize it. And in fact, Rwanda has been, plundering the eastern part of Congo for at least 3 decades now. Kagame, when he took power in 1994, he was backed by the US and the British, and he's also a very important asset for Israel in the region. I don't know if you guys heard of the, there was an agreement between the UK and Rwanda, whereby the UK would deport refugees who were denied entry into the UK. Mm-hmm. That agreement was first signed between Israel and Rwanda back then, but it was secret, right? So it was a blueprint for the UK, right, to sign the same type of agreements with Rwanda. But it's just an example to show you how embedded, right, and how deep the relationship between Rwanda and Kagame and the imperialists have been over the past 3 decades. There are also agreements between the European Union and Rwanda, whereby the European Union would buy the minerals that Rwanda is plundering the eastern part of Congo. And as they talk about the so-called peace plan, the clashes are still going on, right? They're still fighting. Rwanda is, when I say Rwanda, is officially the M23, right? Which is called the so-called militia, which is actually controlled directly by the Rwandan army and by Kagame himself, right? So they're controlling the most important towns and provinces of Eastern Congo, North Kivu and South Kivu, right? They're controlling Bukavu, they're controlling Goma, which also allows them to export all the minerals they're plundering from the eastern part of the Congo. And when we started discussion, when we talked about the Haitian Revolution, Ikemba said something very important, was that one of the strategies that the slave masters back then implemented in order to disarm, or at least to defeat the Africans, was that they would arm some Africans against others, right? Which is something they have also done during the colonization. If you take a country like Niger, was when the French they invaded Niger, when they colonized it, there was a majority of African soldiers, right, in their ranks. So this is something that they're also trying to do right now. So they're using, whether in the diaspora or in the continent, whether we talk about leaders, African heads of states, or the black leadership class in the US, they always use, they're still using the same tactic, right? Using some Africans would be playing the dirty job. That's what Kagame is doing, and that's also what the black leadership class is doing in the US. And we'll probably have people, you don't have that class yet in France, but definitely you can, I think they will co-opt some individuals, some groups that will be serving the interests of the French or British or Belgian or colonial, ambition in Africa, which makes it very. I'm not as optimistic as some of our elders. I'm not talking about those who are here today, but some of the people I've heard comment on the prospect of the African liberation. I think it's going to be a very dangerous decade for us, because the black leadership class and the African bourgeoisie, they're not willing to give up on their privileges, which will make the struggle even harder for us. So I wouldn't say that I'm pessimistic, but I think we shouldn't underestimate the dangers that we'll be facing, whether it's coming from the fascists or the neo-colonial puppets that we have back home.
No doubt. Appreciate that, Bona. That was a excellent layout. We'll give Dhoruba 2 points for that, because the fact that he believed in you. You know what I'm saying? Kiana was looking like she wasn't sure, but you know what I mean? We still here. Dhoruba, you wanted to add something to your
No. What I really wanted to do was I wanted to cater it over to Ajamu and get a little more insight into the what's really going on with Venezuela and the threats that's being issued, because as South America seems to be trying to struggle to move more to the left, the enemies are coming out in bolder and in more extreme fashions. And also too, I had some questions about how I think South America has a more cogent understanding of state fascism, and because of all of these police murder units and stuff that were set up all the way back in the 50s, than Africans do. I don't think we in Africa really associate the history and the reality of capitalist fascism with the underpinnings of neocolonialism today, of imperialism in Africa today. And I think that's going to be a problem for us, Ajamu and Bona, that of how do we define fascism within the context of Pan-African, or the Pan-African paradigm of unity, because some of the features of some African states, especially Arab states, have these various features, mainly economic features of fascist capitalist state control. Simply put, we know from social science 101 that fascism is essentially the marriage between the corporate financial elite and the industrial class and the state, and the political apparatus, military apparatus of the state. We already know about democratic fascism in America. Black folks have been living under it for hundreds of years, a version of that fascism. But I don't think it's really brought out like that. And that's what I wanted to ask Ajamu. And is that detrimental to our understanding how do we express our solidarity with states like Venezuela or like Peru and Colombia, who have this mixed history of police, a right-wing police state agents of fascism, essentially. So I'd be interested to hear what Ajamu and Bernard got to say about that.
Those are some difficult questions, comrade, and I think it's something that most of us on the left are grappling with in terms of trying to really understand the forces that have been unleashed as a consequence of the global contradictions of this colonial capitalist system. And in doing that, when we look at situations like, and I'll start back in Africa, we move over to Latin America and the Caribbean. When you look at, again, the Congo, I found it fascinating that one of the consequences of the so-called peace process was that the thing that Rwanda used to pretend for decades that it had nothing to do with the insurgencies in the Eastern Congo. All that was basically jettisoned. It's like, why are we playing these games? We know this is all about Rwanda, and therefore the principles that should be confronted or addressed in any kind of dialogue, any kind of so-called diplomacy would be the Congo, the DRC, and Rwanda. And it seemed like that part people just kind of missed that, So all what happened was basically in that so-called agreement was, and one wonders why the Congolese even went into it. It was to, in essence, formalize the control of Eastern Congo by Rwanda. And to me, it's another example of the kind of normalized lawlessness that we've seen that becoming part of everyday life in terms of international relations. That there's no real respect for the territorial integrity of states. So it's the kind of agreement that I think reflects the kind of deterioration of the international system that we've seen the Trump forces really accelerate over the last year. That's related also to what we see unfolding in Latin America with this armada off the coast of Venezuela, engaged in these extrajudicial executions, murders of Venezuelan people who they claim are involved in drug running. And now with the agreement or with the announcement that they're going to impose, in essence, an economic blockade from the sea. And this is accepted. And that basically condemned like it should be. And that even when the Security Council meets, you have all of these nice speeches being made by various states, but there's no concrete action. You have a whole day of speeches, and then the meeting concludes with no agreement to impose any kind of sanctions or any kind of real criticism of the United States of America. Now, the political consequence of all of this, though, is this, and this is what Comrade is referring to. The U.S. policymakers are making a critical mistake, and I'm glad they are. they don't understand that the Latin America is a different region, that it has this long history of radicalism, long history of mass-based organization. It has the experiences of leftist, if you will, governments tasting a degree of state power. And it has these experiences within the context of this increasingly sharpening contradictions of the neoliberal global order, contradictions that cannot be resolved. So by evoking the historical anti-Yankee sentiments of social forces across the continent with the potential intervention into Venezuela, is going to unleash forces that they are going to be unable to contain across the continent, across the Americas. And so this is the situation, I think, that is going to provide some real good opportunities for us to strengthen the ties between forces in South America and forces in the Caribbean and in North America. It's going to lead to what some of us refer to as a more American-wide consciousness, if you will. The fact that we're all part of this region. And that's vitally important also because we see too, emerging from the Trump administration's national security strategy paper, that what the administration is suggesting is that in order for it to try to continue to engage the world, it needs to do this from a consolidated base. What's that consolidated base? It's the Western Hemisphere. And so they have merged the NORTHCOM and SOUTHCOM command structures. And they recognize that in order for them to completely consolidate and to undermine, from their point of view, any radical opposition, that Venezuela is in fact the key. That if you keep Venezuela down, you basically are able to suppress forces across the continent, because Venezuela was in a position to support radical movements, organizations across the continent. They know that Venezuela is also key in terms of providing continued support to Cuba. And so, part of their strategy for maintaining global hegemony is consolidate the Western Hemisphere by destroying Venezuela and preparing themselves to intervene and undermine opposition is going to emerge in this hemisphere as a consequence of those actions.
That's very interesting. I just wanted to see. I think that the U.S. strategy in positioning warships and a task force off the Venezuelan coast is showing their hand, because that task force is unable to monitor maritime traffic and international waters. The Coast Guard used to do that, but the Coast Guard lacks the type of specific teams, boarding teams that they have. So they have to wait for these teams to be assigned in order to do these actions. The reason why I mentioned that, the U.S. is overextended globally. Its military is stretched thin in Western Asia, in the Eastern Mediterranean. It's stretched thin around China. It's in the Pacific. It's stretched thin in other areas in Africa. In fact, it was expelled from Africa, in the Indian Ocean. And I just wanted to drop this. I know recently the Chinese military conducted exercises off of Taiwan. In fact, they surrounded Taiwan and shot missiles and ammunition over Taiwan. The Taiwanese were due to collect, I think it's a $1.5 billion military package from the U.S. And in response, the Chinese have launched this massive exercise that mimicked taking Taiwan back. And Trump was quiet. Trump, he was literally like nonplussed. And now we know from experience that anytime these crackers get quiet about something on the international scale that threatens their hegemony and their global hegemony, they are in trouble. They usually overblow minor things and don't speak on major things, you know. And I think that that's very important. I think that the Chinese took this time in this moment for this exercise to address some of the things that Ajamu is talking about, that's going on in around Latin America. We know, was it 2 Chinese oil tankers, 1 Chinese oil tanker that was seized, and was it 2 or 1? I think it was.
It was. They seized 2. They chased a third one, and that one was. It wasn't quite clear to me, but it seemed like it was a Russian tanker flying under a different flag.
Yeah. I think that the Chinese, that this military operation they said it was unprecedented. That the Chinese deployed over 130 aircraft, dozens of warships, and literally surrounded Taiwan and did a military exercise. I think that was a signal sent to the U.S. and to the West that piracy and boarding sovereign or try to interdict a nation's right to trade with whomever they choose is going to be a major conflict line as BRICS expands. I think what's happening in Western Asia now and what's going on in Venezuela is going to cause more nations to consider joining BRICS and participating in BRICS, not less. So I think the Chinese move was a shot over the bow and to the Americans, because we know the U.S. has always been talking about pivoting from NATO's involvement in the Ukraine and in Western Asia to China. They want this quote so-called pivot, you know, and increasingly Western Asia, especially Iran and Syria, are drawing a lot of American military forces and energy. So I think the Chinese picked a good time. I think I would have hoped that if this would have been a good time for the Chinese to actually take Taiwan back, you know, and then we would have really been. I know you're laughing, right? But I'm saying, man, it's like the same. I mean, it's just my feelings. You know how we are. We activists. We ain't in the positions of power, so we see things a little more direct than they do. It's the same thing with Iran. I don't know what has possessed Iran to keep negotiating and talking of this bullshit with the U.S. They need to get busy and get this over with as soon as possible. And as we see, I know we've read the headlines with the demonstrations taking place in Tehran, and the demonstrations are supposed to be about, quote, economic issues. People are suffering. And they're talking about, you know, kill Khomeini. So yeah, if that don't sound like the U.S. and the Zionists, I don't know what does. But undoubtedly, the people in Iran are suffering from the U.S. embargo and sanctions, undoubtedly. And so we could see how that can be easily mobilized. But we also know that the political factions in Iran usually abstain from these economic mass protests because they see that the political nexus between the economy and the geopolitics in Iran's foreign policies resonates. It's very clear. Whereas those who are in the street banging frying pans and stuff, talking about they ain't got enough to eat, I don't think that they're really clear that the reason why they're in that situation is because of the very system they're clamoring for to establish with the very people that are imposing the sanctions on them. You know, so.
Brother, you remember? I know you remember. This is what, 1962 or so, when the Cubans, when the Russians, the Soviets, basically shot down the spy plane over Cuba.
Yeah, the U-2.
U-2, yeah. Now you remember the backstory to that. They said that the way that happened was that Fidel was at the headquarters where they had everything set up and they had the radar, and they were demonstrating to Fidel how they were tracking the spy plane, because it wasn't something that was doing, the U.S. was doing all the time. And as they're explaining to Fidel how they were tracking it and how if they needed to or wanted to, they can shoot it down. And they pointed to a red button, that if they pressed that red button, that would release the rockets and shoot down the plane. And they said, Fidel said, "You mean this one right here?" And they said, "Yeah, that one." And they said, Fidel pushed it. So the point is, you're right. We see this as revolutionary in a different kind of way than these fucking states. The Chinese are playing a very dangerous game with the U.S. Okay, when they had an opportunity to draw some red lines with the U.S., they have not done that, and they have the leverage. People got to remember that the U.S. is in profound debt. Okay, and one of the states that holds a significant amount of that debt are who? The Chinese. Okay. And so with that kind of leverage, you would think that they would be a little bit more aggressive in terms of looking out for their own interests. This move on Venezuela is a move against the region, no question about that. But the main objective to consolidate power in the region is to push out primarily the Chinese. And specifically when it comes to Venezuela, you have the Chinese who have invested significant amounts of money into trying to revamp the petroleum industry in Venezuela. And they even invested a significant amount of money to build the refinery capacity to refine their specialized heavy crude that you have from Venezuela. And that 90% of the oil trade between Venezuela and the world was with Chinese, with China. Okay. And so the Chinese are quite clear that this move against Venezuela is really, again, another part of the move against them. So the question becomes, where do you draw the line? Now, we know that the Russians are still believing that they can have some what they refer to as strategic stability with the U.S. If they're going to resolve this Ukrainian situation and they're going to be allowed to coexist for a while. Put that to the side for a moment. But everybody is clear that the real target for U.S. imperialism is China. And so, like you were saying, you know, this exercise they just completed off around Taiwan. It's the second time they had that kind of exercise where they demonstrated basically what they're going to do when they decide to take Taiwan, which basically is to surround it, blockade it, and then go in. And you would think that maybe this was the moment to do that, but I don't think that they see it in that way because
I know
they still believe.
Well,
they still believe that they got some opportunities for diplomacy, but I think we look at this differently.
I think that was from that was from the Korean War, because remember when Kuomintang fled to it was Formosa then, when it fled to Taiwan, you know, the only reason Mao couldn't follow them because they weren't equipped and configured to follow them across the straits and right into it. So, and then the Korean War popped off 6 months later. So the Chinese were still consolidating their power in Peking. But we do know that the Chinese did not hesitate to cross the Chosin Reservoir in North Korea when the United States ran on their border. They viewed that as a serious attempt or potential attempt to reestablish the Kuomintang. We had Douglas MacArthur talking about dropping the A-bomb on them and all of this stuff. And so I think that opportunity was missed, that to retake Taiwan within 2 years after coming into Peking, they couldn't do it. But I think this time, all of the war games just been run by the U.S. and the AI machines and computers have indicated that 8 out of 10 confrontation scenarios with China, the U.S. lost.
Well, see, comrade, it's even worse than that. It's even worse than that. My understanding is that they ran 25 of them, and the U.S. lost every time.
Yeah, that's another one. But the one I was talking about is when they said that they had to commit forces that weren't readily available to the conflict. They were relying on allies. You know, they have these bases all around China, and Australia is a major component of this thing, as New Zealand, Australia, and of course Japan, where they have the U.S. as a military presence in Japan. And we know that the Japanese Constitution is in the process of being rewritten so that they can have a military. And because the U.S. desperately needs allies that have a military that's on par with theirs. And I think the Ukraine has exposed a lot of the equipment that the U.S. said that they developed, the Iron Domes and the drones and the F-16s and M1 tanks, proved to be scrap metal, you know, in the Ukraine. And Hamas has probably blown up more Merkava tanks than they have actually manufactured, you know, and they don't even have an air force or army. So the U.S. is in a desperate situation here, and people cannot understand why the U.S. unequivocally supports the European settler state of Israel. And that's obvious, that why, strategically and geopolitically and economically, why. And but I think that fortunately that whole episode, that whole campaign in Western Asia is unraveling the world order that was established after World War II, that the U.S. and the creation of the U.S. and the WTO and the World Bank and Bretton Woods, all this stuff was constructed after World War II and the Marshall Plan. It's all unraveling right now. And I think that
I argue, comrade, that I'm in complete agreement. And I argue that one of the last institutions that have now been completely co-opted is now the UN Security Council. That happened on November 17th of now last year, when they basically voted to approve that bullshit so-called peace plan that undermined all of the principles of international law, the UN Charter, and United Nations resolutions, by basically making the U.S. a co-belligerent, handing over the plight of Palestinian people to the Israeli fascists and the U.S., undermining or basically ignoring the fundamental right of Palestinians to fight for self-determination. I mean, this to me was the final capturing of those institutions and the consolidation of what I refer to as global fascism, going back to the original part of our conversation. That basically what we have is a fascistic reconfiguration of power, still under the leadership of the United States, working with and operating through comprador bourgeoisie elements across the planet. And so therefore the notion of the national class struggle is clearly has to be seen as international, a global one. And the peace agreements and so-called peace agreements in the Congo, the Armada off the coast of Venezuela, the Ukrainian conflict, all of these things are part of that process, and the move being made by the U.S. in terms of consolidating the Western Hemisphere, that's going to have certain aspects we have to be aware of. they're going to move their forces to the Pacific coast side of South America. That's why they were talking about Panama and the importance of reasserting themselves in Panama. They are militarizing the entire Pacific coast from Panama all the way down through Chile and islands off the coast. All of this is part of their pathetic attempt, their desperate attempt to try to maintain hegemony in the Western Hemisphere. And so the question becomes for us politically, what does that mean for us in terms of our political organizing, our political perspectives, our political programs? And we argue that basically it is no longer viable for us to still avoid embracing an internationalist perspective, not understanding the importance of us being seen as part of the Americas, connecting that to our commitment to revolutionary Pan-Africanism, but recognizing that we have African peoples throughout the Americas and African people in African states throughout the Caribbean and in Western Europe. And so our whole conception of the African nation has to expand along with our understanding of what is to be done in terms of a revolutionary process.
We have about 15 minutes. Go, no.
I just want to throw in here, and everybody could get on the net at the recognition of the Fifth Pan-African Congress in Accra a couple of weeks ago, that I had the fortune to be able to attend. The manifesto that was put out was in solidarity with the reparations and movement in the Caribbean. In fact, it was orientated towards the islands of the Caribbean, and so I think that the call for reparations, and this has to be clear, we're not using the same definition of reparations than some of our brothers and sisters use in the U.S. The reparations that was put out in this international by the Ghanaian government wasn't just about paying back restitution for colonialism. It was about restructuring of the global world order in which the West had accrued wealth and power and privilege off of the colonization of Africa and the North Atlantic slave trade. And so this doesn't mean that we should come up with a sum of money and give it to Black folks or write them off on taxes, or each state could make a claim. It wasn't that. It was talking about a new world order. It was talking about, because we know the history of how the West and how Europe and the U.S. acquired their wealth. And we can't enslave nobody to do that in this era. We can't send boats and ships across the ocean to colonize other countries, you know. And this is one of the reasons why reparations and restitution right now is not about just paying back. It's about reconstructing the current global world order, and in which Africans afforded the West the basic economic and territorial access resources to become what they've become today. And I think Israel, is very key to this, because Israel is wrecking the total world order that was created after World War II. Those crackers are stark raving mad. They don't care about nothing. They'll bomb an embassy and tell you it was in self-defense. They'll shoot. They'll melt. They're doing some outrageous shit.
So how do you see reparations coming about? Because of the fact that what you're talking about, and like you said, a lot of our comrades are talking about, they slightly differ. Let's just say that to be polite. You know what I'm saying? What would be, because of the fact when we're talking about Israel, we're talking about the United States, France, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, so on and so forth. What does reparations look like? Because of the fact that I know, from just this panel alone, you're not talking about, just petitioning. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What does it look like in real time? Because I know that there are folks, when you say reparations, in the immortal words of George Jackson, it would be what would be more realistic is reparation in blood. But we're not gonna go there.
Well, I think one of the quickest ways to do this, I think Kalanji, is Kwesi Pratt, the chairman of the socialist movement in Ghana. He just wrote a book that the president of Ghana launched, and it's sort of like the ideological context for what the type of reparations we're calling for. In fact, the book is called Reparations by Kwesi Pratt. And I think that all of us should try to get a good look at it and bring whatever perspectives we want to bring to it. But I think that the way it's being laid out, the difference the way it's being laid out, first of all, we have the breakup, we have the cracks that are appearing in ECOWAS right now because of the AES, because of the unification of the Sahel states. Ibrahim Traore is a continental icon in this younger generation. I mean, you got people running for elections in Kenya, and they got Ibrahim Traore's picture on the side of the bus. You see what I'm saying? So the idea of sovereignty, the idea of controlling your own resources, the idea of feeding your own people with your own food, all of these ideas, which we all know are basic and fundamental, and was totally usurped and abrogated by imperialism and colonialism for decades. This seems like something so revolutionary that young people can't, they can't understand why it hasn't been implemented already. You see, and it's the comprador class, and I think that the way reparations is being pulled in this book, and I'm sure you can get a link to the book, and I'll talk to the chairman of the social.
Let's bring him on.
I think you should bring him on with the book, and I would love to see him on with Ajamu, because he asked about Ajamu on a couple of occasions. I told you that. Because this solidarity that we're talking about now, and that Ajamu and the other comrades we're talking about, this solidarity has to first be clear ideologically for many of us. It can't just be some, some neoliberal stuff, and people are saying like that recent campaign, no kings campaign. This was the most massive demonstration in the United States in my memory. Millions and millions of people in hundreds of cities across but the ideology of it, the focus of it, they went all the way back to the medieval Magna Carta years to talk about no kings. We ain't talking about a king now. We're talking about ethno-Christian white supremacy in the fascist state. That's what we're talking about. Trump ain't trying to be a king. Trump is a pimp. Trump is a billionaire. He ain't got no real ideology now, unless it's making money. And he has no real humanity, because he doesn't care who he has to kill, what he has to do in order to get it, in order to do that. And so, the fact that this mass movement didn't have a radical or revolutionary or even a progressive leadership tells you we had this mass movement, and what are we talking about? What has come out of that mass movement? Basically nothing. People are still just going through with the orange man. Like I said, he ain't gonna make it to the next election. But even so, he was hoping that, even if he did, by the time he finished, he'd be able to step into office without a pause. You see, but I'm saying,
Black Lives Matter. It was the new version of Black Lives Matter. Let's just take it to the
hashtag movement. I know Ajamu. We discussed that on a couple of occasions. But we have to have ideological clarity. We don't have to all agree ideologically on the methodology in which we arrive at that clarity, but we do have to have it. And it's like the social democrat that just got elected to New York. We know the history of social democracy in the 30s and the 40s. We know how it was a ameliorative. It was a compromise between the radical communists of that era, who were the major opposition to fascism. Fascism's major opposition were the communists, all through World War II, all leading up to World War II. Social democrats were trotted out in order to soften that type of outlook, because they were talking about workers' parties, workers controlling industry, or, you know, the Krupps and the industrialists, they weren't trying to hear that shit, even though they were defeated in World War II. None of the industrialists in Nazi Germany or in Austria ever stood trial. I think 3 stood trial. And they only got, what, 10 years or something in prison. And then they only actually did 3 or 4. And then they went back to business as usual. The Krupps, the makers of Messerschmitt, Volkswagen, all of these guys, they were the ones that supplied the Nazi war machine with instruments of war, you know. And so this is something that's being done today. And I think that the United States position of supplying, being the major arms manufacturer of some of the most reactionary regimes in around the world is going to come back and haunt them, you see. And so I think that in terms of making the link between the Pan-African paradigm, creating a Pan-African paradigm in the 21st century, and what's happening in other regions, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's in the Pacific Islands, whether it's in Latin America, making that link in terms of Pan-African unity is going to be a serious stretch of ideology, and we can't be dogmatic in this. I think we have to. Yeah, there's the book.
Yeah, shout out to Mama Kosowa for giving us the correct title: Reparations, History, Struggle, Politics, and Law. Reparations for Africa, Slavery, Colonialism, and the Global Struggle for Justice. We're going to work on getting Kwesi Pratt out here. I'm sure Dhoruba can help us with that. Hopefully, we can get him on as early as next week.
I think you should. I really think we should have Ajamu on too, because first of all, Ajamu and Kwesi, they know each other, and they have a past, and so I think it would be very enlightening for the younger people to listen to the comrades explain the difference between reparations and what some of our comrades are talking about with these reparations committees in San Francisco and stuff. They're not the same thing.
But Dhoruba, you're talking about getting Ajamu out here. We might have to book him 6 months in advance, so we see if we can.
Yeah, I know. He's harder to reach. Yeah, he's harder to reach.
No. There's certain people that when I see a message from them, I automatically respond. Okay,
that's what Assisi says in Egypt.
Listen, that's what Assisi says. We got a couple minutes left, man. We're gonna go over, but I don't care right now. I just want to, in closing, first I want to say, remind our audience that today is also the 114-year anniversary. We was talking about China. This is the day that China actually became a republic. On this day, January 1st, 1912. I want to point that out along with all the other revolutionary history. But what I would like to do is get your take. And I know Fernando is quiet over there. He in France, right? Whatever. Y'all not disrespecting France.
Don't forget Haiti now today also. Anyway.
Oh
yeah. Yo, we talked about Haiti. We talked about Haiti.
Haiti.
We talked about.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, man, we ain't slipping on here, man. It's Black Power. We got brother go to this, man. We talked about Haiti. We talked about who else? We talked about Cuba. Yeah, we talked about the Zapatistas. We didn't go into detail, but absolutely, Black Power Media is a revolutionary platform. This is not that other thing. Oops, I said that on the floor. But anyway, I need a 3-month prediction from you two brothers on what we're looking at geopolitically, what the world looking like. I want y'all to do your Black Nostradamus African style prediction on what we're looking like over the next 3 months. We'll start with you, Ajamu, because we know Dhoruba gonna be gory and dark in his response. So you know what I'm saying. We're gonna start with you so we can possibly have some light before Dhoruba.
Yeah, I just wanted off the topic, and we could correspond on this privately with Ajamu. Like I was pointing out, this U.S. passport is becoming a liability. And I was wondering if you had the same type of experiences. I mean, do you see that coming down the pike for you too?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I really understand where the AES nations are coming from, but it's going to be, yeah, that could be the beginning of a trend that can have a major impact on those of us who are doing international work. And so, yeah, I see that as almost inevitable response on the part of various states, in response to the undignified attacks being made on them by the U.S. And we're going to get caught up in the process because we are a captive people in the U.S. state. So we've got to start making some alternatives. Some of y'all already got it, but
well, I have some, but I know it might be particularly difficult for you in South America.
Well, I'm based on what just happened, interested enough. There's some conversations taking place like now. See how I can resolve that.
Yeah. John just showed you he got the juice. Let us get that prediction real quick. I almost called you OJ. I don't want to do you like that. I want to get this. Have you running through the airport trying to get up out of there?
Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna be able to have more light to anybody because basically, let me start like this. I think in the end we're going to be able to win. I think there's no question about that. That basically, the trajectory of people's struggles is one in which we're going to be able to finally put an end to this 500 and plus year nightmare of European global dominance. But until we get to that point, though, Africans, it's going to be difficult because we are seeing the consolidation of global fascism that will have particular manifestations in whatever national environment we might find ourselves in. And in the U.S., it's going to be even more difficult because we are so incredibly disorganized at this point. And so it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I think the good thing is in the process, it's going to be a filtering out process where we're going to be able to consolidate our radical revolutionary forces into a much more coherent, steeled opposition, if you will.
So, no doubt, appreciate that. Take us on home, Brother Dhoruba.
Well, I mean, I can't say nothing. I think myself, we're this same program when we talk about reparations. A part of it is visa-less travel on the African continent, and there's already 7 countries that for Africans that is enough. That is sufficient enough for you to have a visa for residence and to work, and that's going to be put to the AU at the next AU. Congress in Ethiopia, hopefully before, if these crackers don't incinerate us all by then, But yeah, myself, I have some connections too, so I shouldn't be restricted by a passport of the empire in another month or 2. But I do have medical treatments that are going on back and forth, in the States. And we know how these crackers are, they might tell you, you just might be like the Hotel California. You could check in, but you never could check out. You see what I'm saying? So I just hope that, and that's why I posed the question to Ajamu, because we could come back thinking that, we only here 5 days, we out of here. You see, and before and we ain't got that many radical lawyers.
That's my biggest fear, African. That's my biggest fear.
That's me too, man. I swear that's me too. And I got to come back every 90, 120 days for the cancer review and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was trying to find out if I could do it over here. I know there's medical facilities in which I can do that. The cost is far more than a plane ticket. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the problem. Yeah, but I think we got to figure out something, Ajamu. And I think one of the things I'm talking about with this international committee is that for those activists who have a track record, who have a history, that they be given a status somewhat as a diplomatic passport. And they're seriously considering that. Yeah, because there's a lot. I think Ghana got the largest diaspora on the continent. But don't get it twisted, though. A lot of these comrades, a lot of these brothers and sisters are over here. They're not genuine Pan-Africans. You know, they wanted to come home. You know, they had the emotional connection to Africa, the cultural connection, and they have some money. They want to start their own African business, and you can't blame nobody for wanting to be away from white folks now. So I ain't gonna hate on them, you see. But they're not here. They're not here building the type of solidarity what they're talking about. Some of them are even working for corporations and companies that are based here. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to denigrate them or anything, but I'm saying, you know, that class struggle is going on here between the comprador class in the U.S. that's coming here faking like they're Pan-Africans, or you have professors coming over here like Dr. Daniels faking like they're Pan-Africans. You see, and so my role, and I'm trying to implement by relaunching my NGO here, is as mosquito spray, and to give them the type of advice, you know, so that they know when they're bringing in an agent and when they're not, on a confidential basis. Because we have, you know, Ajamu and Kalanji, we do know the Negroes over here in the United States who's fronting and you know and fraudulent in their politics. We do know them. But the problem, I mean, they just had what's this guy's name? Busta Rhymes was just here. Who's the other one? Southern Negro. Oh man. I mean, we had Boyce Watkins, all of these guys, you see. But now that this new administration's in, and I know some of the presidential advisors personally, I knew them since they was in high school, some of them. So I'm able to, you know, hit them up in their busy schedule saying, man, you know, you want to vet this guy. You see what I'm saying? You might want to vet him rather than just, you know, because he's famous, he got a voice, you know, he's Busta Rhymes, or I'll Be Sure, or somebody, you know. It's their comprador class. Yeah, it's their comprador class here that invites them.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because they're popular. Your homeboy that runs with Reverend Al, what's his name? The lawyer.
Ben Crump.
Crump. They invited. You should go on YouTube and listen to his address to the Diaspora Summit. This dude sounds like a babbling idiot, and he's a lawyer. And I said, man, listen, bro.
He is an idiot. I don't understand how he got where he is.
Chopped him, man. You know, he had to give up that Jewish lawyer, got him a black one, and they ride him, man. He does the eulogies, and Crump represents the families. You see what I'm saying?
Check it out, Black Power Media, where you can hear about everything from Busta Rhymes to Crump the Chump. We are grateful to have on deck today riding shotgun with my brother Fernando Cardenas out in France. Shout out to our brother Bona, our sister Kiana, and Ikemba.
Dr. Ikemba.
Yeah, Dr. Ikemba. I'm sorry, Dr. Ikemba. Dr. Sis. You know, and to our brothers Ajamu and Dhoruba. You're checking out Black Power Media. I want to point out too, before you all go, we have another program that just broadcast like right now. We went over a little bit on this one, but it's 51 years of justice denied. It's with Black Panther veteran Bowers, and it's right on Black Power Media right now. So when you leave this, just click off and go right to that program. It's a serious joint. It's a panel that we had recently with hosted by Reverend Kiana, attorney Jennifer Jones, and myself. This was at the National Coalition of Black Lawyers, so make sure y'all check that out. It's Baranza's first time coming to Atlanta since he was in prison, and that took place at Georgia State University. This is a pre-record. Anyway, make sure
real quick, I just want to say it real quick. I just want to give thanks to all three of you comrades. And you know, these conversations are extremely important, you know, because Boona and myself being over here in France, just getting to to talk with y'all, and understanding that now we take some of this back to our organization over here. And this is what Pan-Africanism is about. It's important for us to be communicate, and also for the people, for this to be public, for the people to see and get this. I think what Dhoruba said about ideology is important. We need to make sure our ideology is on point, and also going back to what you said earlier, Dhoruba, about that database. I think it's very important that we need to be working towards that in order to keep working, because we sometimes when we get out of our circles, of our activists and organizing circles, we see that we need a lot more. We got a lot of work to do. Let me just say it that way. So I appreciate you all for this, and struggle continues.
No doubt. We appreciate you as well. What, you're like 7 hours ahead over there? It's like 9 p.m.
6. Yeah, 6.
Yeah, we both 6.
No doubt, no doubt. This is beautiful. We got 4 different brothers and 4 different sides of the planet right now, and and it's all around the world. Same song.
No doubt. That's it.
You know what I'm saying? Same song, man. Stay on top of the world. We're gonna win in spite of ourselves. We have stay tuned. We have some information coming up. There will be a forum held for Imam Jamil Al-Amin and H. Rap Brown. We will keep you posted on this platform. This is something that Dhoruba and others are spearheading, and we're looking forward to commemorating all of our fallen comrades. We took serious hits last year and the year before. I did a count just on veteran freedom fighters and political prisoners, etc. We've lost about 15 that I can think of in the past 3 years. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to make sure that we stay on the right side of the barricades. We're going to keep on fighting. Salute to Dhoruba, Ajamu, Fernando. Salute to all you folks that's checking us out here on Black Power Media. This is the first day, the first program of the year, and I think it was a great program to get started. Again, go check out the piece we did with Veronza Bowers. Also tonight, check out Operation Power with Charles and Inez Barron. I'm sure they'll have some powerful guests. That'll be at 7 p.m. EST. And make sure you continue to support what it is we're doing over here. If you're feeling it, tap something put something in that collection plate to make sure that we stay afloat, because that's what we do around here. Brothers, comrades, love y'all, revolutionary love, and we'll see you in the whirlwind. This is Black Power Reloaded.
Peace. Bow to the people.
Bow to the people.